Okay, hi everybody, this is part 2 of our Build with Bootstrap from Photoshop to HTML. And in this section, we are going to build the second section of this website, which I just called Specials, which is that little part there. And we're going to start to set some very powerful CSS styles. We're going to actually determine some H2 styles, we're going to determine some H3 styles, we're going to determine some P styles for our copy, and we're going to code this section. I'm not in this part of this tutorial going to do a slider here. That is for a more advanced tutorial, but we're just going to do some horizontal cards. Okay, yay, fantastic. All right, so again, just to recap where we were last time. We finished our nav. Remember that I styled my own nav with a class called myNav. So just remember that you can take some things from Bootstrap and then you're going to add to that. Okay, you're going to add to that so that you have your own styling. And again, just run through it. My width of my nav is 100% because I want it completely side to side. I'm creating a nice large font size 1EM. The text is uppercase. I'm going to use a bold, that's my font, and I'm also giving it a min height. And then, as I said, I'm adding a background transparent there just so that when I scroll, I can actually see my nav. And then we've added some other CSSs for my actual links. We changed the color for when there is actually an A tag within my nav, and also the hover. So these are for your links that are A's. Now, A's within sits inside of my nav. Okay, so I hope you kind of are still following me. If I have an A and it sits in my nav, what does it actually look like? Okay, so that is quite important, but that is also why that we have an underline under our home or our home logo. So we have to kind of like take that out. But let's focus on what we are going to build, and this is this section. And I am using comments, very important, to just tell myself where I am now. I am in the small card section. Okay, and it is quite a big section that we are going to actually build, but that is end of cards. Okay, so again, I'm going to start with a container. Why? I'm going to just add a red border here so that you can see what I'm actually referring to. Whoopie doopie doo. Sorry, let's just go back into our browser. All right, so I am referring to, I'm actually referring to this section here. Okay, if I save it, that will work. Okay, I'm referring to this section that I'm going to build. Why am I going to put that in a container and not in container fluid? Because I only wanted to sit in the middle. Okay, so I'm going to start with, in my HTML, remember it's always structure first and then styling second. Okay, so I'm putting it inside of a container. I'm adding a red border, as I say, so I can troubleshoot. Then I'm going to add a row. Why? Because I know I'm going to have columns. Okay, if I have two elements inside of my PSD, then surely I must have two columns inside of my, I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. Then I am going to actually have two columns inside of my HTML. And for columns, I need a row. Okay, now what I have done to start off with is I have created a row, and then inside of that row, I created a column, a 12 column. Again, what is that? That is, you don't really have to do a 12 column, but you can just do col. Col is fine. All right, this is for my headline. Okay, so if I just refresh, this is that part there. Again, as I said, I'm a bit of a control freak. I'd like to actually make sure that, you know, I put everything in a little row so that I know where they are. Okay, all right. So that is my row, pardon the barking dog here. That is my row that I am going to put my H2 in. Okay, all right. I'm using the classic text center CSS from Bootstrap so that my text is in fact centered. Just remember, Bootstrap has got all these amazing CSSs ready for you to use. So make sure that you just go right through the documentation of Bootstrap so that you know about all these wonderful CSSs that they've done for you already. MX Auto, what does that actually do if I take that out? All right, you won't see an effect now, but actually MX Auto, again, just help you to place that object in the middle, okay? All right, then I've got an H2 class of main headline. So remember, first think of a name that suits this. This is my main headline, and then I am going to close that div. Okay, so I have a div with a class of col, all right, and I'm closing that. Okay, and I close that row for my headline. Okay, understood. So I open a row, I put a col 12 in there for my headline, I put an H2 in there, I close the div for col 12, and I close the div for row. Okay, very important. Also in Atom, if I click on a div, I can see with an underline of blue where I am actually at. Okay. All right, this MX Auto is to center content, so it is important that you use it. Okay, all right, so what does an H2 actually look like? Once I've created my structure, I can now go into my CSS and I can actually go and add it. Now, again, I've just added main headline. It's probably semantically better if you do H2, but again, it doesn't matter. It's going to affect the tag that it is applied to. So yes, in CSS, you can put h2.main headline there, but you don't necessarily have to. Okay, so yes, I'm using my font family of Pinion. Okay, I'm using a really nice font weight, and I can probably take this down to 6.5. It does look a little bit big, and there it is. Okay, so obviously you have to set your styles per your user style guide or UI style guide, and then you will come in CSS and you will apply it. The color is a lovely gray color, and my text align, again, I'm forcing it center. Although I'm using the text center in Bootstrap, again, I'm a control freak. I use a text align here as well of center. All right, margin top 1 EM. I just want this to kind of like move down from its previous element or from the block. So I'm using a margin 1 element. All right, if we take it out and we save, then you'll see it jumps up right to the top, which to me is a little bit tight on my previous element. So I'm going to leave that in. All right, so again, I'm just going to code that, sorry. I'm going to say I want a margin top of 1 EM. Please do not just use margin. Remember, margin is for everything. All the margins, you need to be very specific, and you need to say margin top. Okay, wonderful. Wonderful. Now we are going to use our beautiful cards from Bootstrap, and we're going to code the rest. Okay, so if we go to HTML, again, put the content in there, the structure. Okay, this you're going to copy, obviously straight from Bootstrap. Again, please put it in a row. Now there are 2 cards there, so there is my row closing, and by the way, remember, this is my container closing. All right, if I click on it, then I'll see this is my container red border closing there. Okay, so I'm stacking my content. MX Auto, again, is to center it. I'm sure it's to center it. Okay, so I've copied this straight. I have made a few changes here from obviously normal cards. Just check out the Bootstrap when you copy and paste it. You might need to make certain changes. So this for me is medium 3. Again, I'm putting it in a row. Remember, there's going to be 2 of them, all right. But I want a really nice width. This comes from the medium 4 comes from Bootstrap, so you're not going to change that. I've put a P-2 there. What does that mean? Again, margin and padding has got their own classes in Bootstrap. You can use the Bootstrap P2 class to actually enlarge the padding. So if I've taken that out, let's just see what that's going to do. If I take that out and I go back, or maybe I must save. No, I must just save this. Okay. Okay, we're not seeing such a big difference, but I'm just going to put that back in. Not see such an. Let's just make it 4. Let's just make it 4 and see what we're going to see. Oh, that's weird. Anyway, okay, so we can leave that out. That's weird. Anyway, okay, all right. Where was I? Okay, then I'm going to put my own image inside of the actual image source. Okay, always remember I've left my alt tags open, but it is important for SEO that obviously on all images and for accessibility, you have to have your alt tags in. All right. And then we're going to put our subheadline in there on our class of an H4. I think per default it's H5 inside of Bootstrap, but I've changed that to an H4. All right, we're going to talk about that in a minute, how we're going to style that. And then there's a P in there. And remember, I said to you, at this stage, we're also going to classify our actual body text, how that is going to look. Again, I'm using the Bootstrap Text Center in here so that my text is in fact centered. Okay. Again, depending on how this card must sit and how you want your image to be, how big is your image in relation to your content. So this is why I'm getting 12 there. Remember, I'm getting 12 there because everything is broken up. So inside of this row, all right, I still have to deal with 8 columns. Okay, so remember, you can stack rows inside of other rows. Row is always 100%. So if I stack one row inside of another one, then I will deal with actually with 100% element, if that makes any sense. Okay, so let's go into CSS and look at our H4 and our H3. Oh, this is very bad semantically, Anka. Let's just fix that immediately. H3 and then H4. So I like to call them subheadlines because that's what they are, and then maybe subheadlines depending on how you're going to use it. So my subheadline, in this case, subheadline 2. Why did I make it 2? I have no idea. Let's just double check. What did I do? Subheadline. H3 and an H4. Okay, so my subheadline, which is my H4. Oh, I know that H3 I'm using later. My subheadline H4 is Roboto, and I've used a 2.2 EM, and I'm making a text transform. Okay, now I can also copy this same style or this same color and place it in there. I'm going to do it for all of them. Okay, and if we refresh, then you'll see that they are in fact gray. Okay, all right, so that is quite important to set the style as good as you can. All right, so again, I say this is an H4. It lives in my cards. Again, you can comment this if you want. So let's just comment this so we keep our heads above water. So this is headlines for cards. Okay, it's always very nice to comment stuff so that you actually know what you're dealing with. So this is my sub headline. Okay, I'm just going to save it. All right, and then I have the P tag, as I said. So we haven't actually dealt with body text now. So I'm going to go back and I am going to go and I think that's a bit higher. I'm going to go and set my body text. All right, so there it is, p.body text. In this case, I am using a p, just so that I also know for myself what am I talking about. In this case, I'm doing my font size as 1.8. If you want to do it 1.6, you are more than welcome. All right, that's going to be a little bit smaller. You see that? Okay. All right. Now, what you also can do is if we go here, I just want to show you one thing. If we go here and we add, I think it's P dash, let's do a P-2 here. All right, do you see what happened now? So if I add a padding of 2, all right, on my actual text, I'm giving it a little bit more padding, and that obviously means that that block becomes a little bit smaller, so that is why you get a widow there. So just remember that you can use the styles or the classes that's already been set inside of Bootstrap to kind of help you. Okay. What I've added that is obviously not in a class is this little graphic element. Okay, so if I go here in my images, then you'll see my little graphic element. It's a little embellishment. All right, that's obviously a PNG. I think it's a PNG 8 because it's a very simple graphic that I've just added inside here. Now, again, if you want to move that a little bit out of the way, I can add a class here as well, and I can give that a P-2, which means that I'm giving this a bit of padding. Maybe let's do a margin. Let's do a margin 2. All right, let's see what that's going to do. All right, and that just moves that object a little bit lower. So it actually just gives it a little bit more breathing space. You know, I'm always all for the breathing space. If we do it even more, let's do a M4. Let's see what that's going to do. Fantastic. That kind of just moves everything down. M4 is maybe a bit big. So let's stick to an M3. Let's see what that's going to do. That's beautiful. Okay. So your M's is for margins, your P's for padding, and really use that to actually increase your own margins and your own padding on elements that has already been set via Bootstrap. Okay, so if we do it for the one, we have to do it for the other. So I'm just going to copy this entire class, and I'm going to add this to my beautiful little graphic. Okay, all right, fantastic. There I have my body text. Again, I have I've got to add it onto both cards, and I'm also using my text center again to force this. Okay, so I'm forcing this P class to be in the center, and that is what I am getting. Okay, beautiful. So now we're kind of done with our second section, and we might even move to our next section, which is our range, which is also cards. Okay, all right. I hope you all understood it. By the way, if you want to create a smaller width, then let's just say, in this case, we're going to have a problem, but let's see what does 340px look like. All right, and that's what it's going to look like. Okay, so obviously what you need to always look at, what is the size that you are actually working with in Photoshop? So this is not something that we just pull out of the air. This is something that comes from the Photoshop file. So again, if we're in Photoshop and if we just zoom in, let's look at that size. So I always use my little marquee, I draw around it. We're going to go to window and our info, and we're going to see what it looks like. So it is a width of 637. All right, so in our CSS, we have to actually say that our max width in this case is, let's say, 540px. I think that is what it was. Now remember also, because it is sitting inside of a container, it will, let me find my little file. We just update it. Boom, there it is. Okay. Now there is a little bit of a misalignment there that we have to work on, but that is some tweaks that we can do later. Okay, I'm just going to save it. All right, so this is your end of your cards. Now we're going to start with a card group. Remember, this A name there at the top is for my jump to links in my nav to go to this section. All right, so again, if we test that, if I go to range, it will go to my to this range section. Again, we have to probably work with a little bit of alignment there. All right. Again, I'm putting this in a container. Why? Let's troubleshoot it, because I want it in the center. Okay, I want this area in the center. Okay, got it. So that's why I'm putting it in a container. I'm also using again, you can use either col or col 12. exactly the same story, right, for my headline. So you can copy and paste the headline that you had before because it's exactly the same. All you need to do is now you need to place the hour range in there. So again, if we just indent that, you'll see what it is. It is a col 12, and if we actually have to be semantically correct, then we should use a row. Okay, I'll just save. The next is going to be a card group. Now, if you're going to use more than one cards, then it's just easier to actually use the card group of Bootstrap to actually put all of the cards in there. All right, M1 again is for a margin of 1, and I'm using text center. Okay, and now you've got to actually just play with your own content. Very important, the div class stays card body. That is according to Bootstrap. You're going to add an H4, which is your own subheadline. Change, obviously, the copy. Change your font to just Ipsum Lorem. And then we are going to add a link. And what is very special that I've added, which we'll come to a little bit later, is I've added a text link in there called Lux Text Links. That's the class name. And I've also added this wonderful thing called Font Awesome element. Okay, great. I love, love, love them. Okay. Love them. So the Font Awesome is very, very simple to use. First things first, you need to put the actual link up in your head tag. All right, you got to look for the latest CDN that will take you to the Font Awesome link. Okay, so Font Awesome is to use very specific icons that this might load long. Very specific icons that actually we use in websites, such as our social media icons, our chevrons, a lock sign, etc., etc. Oh, this is taking very long. Okay. So we're not drawing those. These are SVGs. You can use them. If you go to fontawesome.com, you don't have to download it. You can actually just go and make sure that you see the font. Okay, while this is loading, let me just quickly explain. Very important. It's called Font Awesome and it's a font. Okay, so what do we have what are we dealing with when we have a font? Guys, we have a font size and we have a color. So you got to style this object. Very important. Otherwise, it is not going to work. All right, it is super important. So if I go to my styles, then you will see that somewhere in here, gosh, where is that? Sorry for that. It's going to give you... It's going to give you vertigo. My goodness, where is it? Which 5 testimonials? Oh dear, where is it? There it is. Okay, so we got to style it. Okay, so this is angle right. What am I talking about? If we look at our little website, I'm talking about that little chevron there. Okay, all right. So again, if we go to our card element, we've got a headline. Okay, we've got a P, which is our content. According to the card body, there's an actual button there. I don't want a button. I just want text. All right, so yours must look different than mine if you copied it straight. I don't want a BTN, so I'm taking it out. All I want is an add to cart text. So I'm adding that in my Ahref. All right, and then after that, still inside of the A, guys, still inside, it's still the element, I am going to add this I class of a angle right. And this is also a large one, so I'm doing FA large. Okay, so if we go back to Font Awesome, there they are. Now what you can do is you can just type in arrows in here and you will find all the arrows that you can possibly use. The ones that is grayed out you can't use. And you can also look for chevrons, I think. But you should see arrows in here. If I just go load more, you should be able to see. Oh, there they are. Chevron right, chevron left, etc., etc. Okay, so how do we then use it? If we click on it, we find the one that we do like. Then what's going to pop up is this little element here, all right, what it looks like. And then this little download SVG is what you can use, all right. A lot of times I just click on that and I say copy HTML because that's all I need. I don't actually need the SVG. I just need the actual element. Okay. But as I said, it's very important that you then paste it in there and you need to actually style it. Okay, so you need to style it using your CSS. Otherwise, they are not going to show up. They're also not going to show up if you do not have the CDN in there, the actual link to it. Okay, all right, so I've got my first card in there. All right, margin 1 is just to give it a little bit of a margin. Be careful now with your margins because that also obviously will spread your size a little bit. So I've added all my images, I've added my different sub-headlines for my H4s. Remember, from Bootstrap, it's H5. I've changed it to H4. And I've got a P tag in there, and I've got a link, and all of them have got my angle right. Okay, and that is then the end of my card group. So yes, you're going to take the card group from Bootstrap, you're going to put it in here, and then you are going to make changes. You are going to style your H4s, you're going to style your body text, and you're going to add Lux text link. Okay, so let's just look at Lux text links. What are they, by the way? That is the actual copy link that we have on our add to cart. So I just called them Lux text links. Okay, so in CSS, what I have is an A, yes, it is a link, a Lux text links link, all right, and visited. And then remember again, after link and visited, we can only do hover. So again, you have to set the A tag first, establish the color, the font size, the font weight, the uppercase, text transform, and then set the hover. Okay, so very important. Again, the order, super, super important. So to recap, we are adding, for this entire shebang, we've added a container to keep these things in the middle. All right. Then we started with a row for our headline, and then we added our card group in them. Okay. And we have fixed all of them with our own styles. Okay. Next up is going to testimonials, but this is it for part 2 of our Build with Bootstrap website from Photoshop to code. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it. See you soon. Bye.